All right, folks, welcome in to another edition of the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. I am the somewhat competent host, TJ Rives. Hello to my co-host, Mike Gill. We come your way talking midweek sports media on the landscape, and come your way if you're seeing us right now live here on a Wednesday. You may be seeing us in replay form via social media, YouTube, Twitter, X, etc. By the way, hello, Mike Gill. Good to be back with you, my friend. All good?
Things are good. A little rainy, a little wet today here in Jersey.
It is 95 and hot in West Central Florida where we are, but that's the meteorological outlook. We're here to talk sports media. By the way, we're also a podcast on Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. You can search up Last Word on Sports Media podcast, LWOS Media Pod, and take us in your AirPods, earbuds, Bluetooth, etc. We oftentimes chop it up midweek. We sometimes have special guests that are with us, or special standalone guests in sports media and or announcers, hosts, etc. So we love doing this here. We love talking sports media, and no shortage of subjects, from Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever debuting this season with the new year of the WNBA, to a great call at the end of the Preakness on NBC, NBA and NHL playoffs, Bill Belichick back in the news, sports Emmys being handed out. I mean, Mike, we got a roll call of stuff to go over, my friend, coming up here.
Yeah, NBA Western Conference, Eastern Conference Finals. Western Conference got started last night. ESPN TNT's final ever series is about to tip off tonight with the Eastern Conference Finals. With the Knicks and the Pacers. We'll see how they do with their ratings for the final shebang on TNT.
They have been doing the NBA on Turner, on TNT and TBS for the better part of 40 years now, right at it. And this is it for now, because they have lost the rights to NBC and to Amazon Prime for the foreseeable future. I think it's an 11-year deal for those two entities. So this is going to be it for TNT. But we keep emphasizing this, and we're going to talk more about this with the Sports Emmys, with Ernie Johnson and with Charles Barkley. This is not the end of the Inside the NBA show. It just won't be on Turner anymore. So they'll be doing that show from Madison Square Garden and from the downtown Indianapolis arena. I believe it's now the Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Downtown Indy. They'll be doing the live Inside the NBA for the Eastern Conference Finals, and they should get big-time audience for the Northeast, at least anyway, in New York. So more on that in a little bit. Shall we begin with the Caitlin Clark controversy with Angel Reese? Not surprising that this was a made-for-TV matchup with Indiana and Chicago, and with these two players that are forever linked from battling each other in the NCAA tournament at Iowa and LSU, respectively. And so they get off to the regular season start, year two for both players, game one for both players and their teams to start the regular season 2025. And there's already some controversy with a hard foul from Caitlin Clark. First of all, Angel Reese making like a shopper on Black Friday, trying to shove people out of the way at the Walmart or the Best Buy, trying to get a rebound. Caitlin Clark responds by hacking her across the arm before she could lay the ball in. Now we got pushing and shoving and refs involved in technical fouls. And so now we're leading the show talking the WNBA and controversy and, were there taunts of Angel Reese? Was it inappropriate, Mike? The ratings are in, and they were tremendous ratings. But just give me a general thought or two. The WNBA season is off to a start, and here we are at the top of the sports media pod talking Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, WNBA basketball to begin.
Well, and that's great for them. I mean, they need it. I wish they would do a better job of promoting this. I mean, they're doing it like these two hate each other, that they're villains, and, instead of trying to make it a rivalry and build off of that. And then obviously the ratings are there, though. The ratings were very good for the game. It was the highest rated WNBA game since the year 2000.
Regular season. In any regular season game. That's incredible.
Yeah, and you're talking about, basically ABC is putting this on in their big Sunday windows. I mean, this is for them, where they used to put the NBA on, right? I mean, they would put it on a Sunday afternoon. I saw Caitlin Clark is Tiger Woods. I mean, she is Michael Jordan. I mean, this is right now in all of sports. she is one of the very, very few that you will watch something, even if you don't have a lot of interest in it, just to see this particular athlete.
And the way that she can score. And that's not to say that there haven't been other great players in women's basketball. We keep going over this, but right now she's electric. Right now,
none that are drawing $2.7 million. I mean, what did Paige Beckers get the other night?
You got around like $1.5 million or something, or $1.3 million. And how about the defending champions, the New York Liberty, because I speak the language, the WNBA. They're the defending champs. They played the former two-time champs, Las Vegas, in the opening game of that doubleheader on ABC, and they got a respectable like 1.3 million people to watch. That's a chunk. That's great for network TV. And then the Caitlin Clark Indiana Fever game with Chicago and Angel Reese gets 2.7 million on average.
Yeah. Well, what is that? What that tells you?
Yeah.
What that tells you is the fans are not watching for who the teams are. They're watching for who the players are. You're saying these two teams are a rematch of nobody really cares that these two are the two best teams. They're looking at, I want to watch these particular players.
Yeah, and it sells. And, of course, we could get into it for 15 minutes about the whole controversy now where sports media personalities and former players are taking shots at each other. Ryan Clark on ESPN. Can I just say on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast, Ryan Clark is almost getting to the stage that I really dislike in this business where he's saying things on a personal level about people that he would never say to their face. That if he was man-to-man for Robert Griffin III, he would not be saying things like, you aren't qualified to talk about the Caitlin Clark Angel Reese controversy because you're married to a white woman, which is what he said on ESPN. If he was in a room,
it wasn't on ESPN, it was on his podcast.
Or on the podcast, right. But I think he repeated it. I think he repeated something about it on ESPN or on ESPN radio or something else. He didn't back down from it. My point is, if he was in a room with Robert Griffin III, they might come to blows if that was being said. And I don't know. I think a lot of this is hyperbole, get attention for what you're doing, for the podcast, for et cetera. None of this is bad for the WNBA business and the eyeballs. Now, this is interesting as one other follow-up, and then we're going to move on to other subjects. So they had night 2 of the Indiana Fever, game 2, and the game was on NBA TV head-to-head with the NBA playoff game with the Timberwolves and the Thunder game 1. So they were kind of counter-programming with, hey, we've got Caitlin Clark on NBA TV. You and I talked before, and this is common sense. They had a full off season to figure this out. Her game should be marquee games on an outlet that you can see on cable, streaming, whatever. NBA TV, not in that many homes. I, for one, don't have it on Hulu. I couldn't see the game last night. This is game 2 of their season. I can't see the game. So they've got to do a better job of not self-inflicting. Don't you agree, Mike? Follow up.
Well, and that's what we've talked about with the WNBA is they have some storylines here. They haven't seemed to be able to figure out what to do with them, right? And that's the thing. You're right. I mean, I feel like I haven't seen any advertisement for I wouldn't have known the season even started unless Caitlin Clark stuff kind of got in my feed. But other than that, like Paige Beckers played the other night.
In fairness, they've been pumping it during the ESPN and Turner broadcasts about the WNBA is coming back. If you watch those games, if you've been hanging in there on those games, you'll see a promo. ESPN will promote it during the day. Yeah, they've got a game coming up. But it's not, they haven't been bombarding you with it.
And like Paige Beckers made her WNBA debut the other night. I didn't see the game. I didn't know where it was. Now, listen, I am not the target audience here. I'm not really watching intently here to go out there. But I feel that this is something that the WNBA in the past, like it's obvious here. I'm not obtuse to say they have something here. People are watching. 2.7 million is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, you had NBA games that they're not getting 2.7. You've got Sunday Night Baseball, which, by the way, you had a 2.7 or 2.8 million game in the Subway Series on Sunday night, but that was the most watched baseball game for a regular season in years.
Right.
And here we go, rolling out a game, in the early season WNBA getting 2.7 million.
Let me give you another example of exactly what you're talking about. So I've got the teenage daughters. My twins who are seniors to be in high school. Here they are. I'm holding it up for the video audience, podcast audience. You just have to imagine my two blonde, almost 17-year-olds. They are fans of women's basketball and the WNBA. We watched a ton of the WNBA last year. We watched the NCAA tournament this past March, the women's games in particular, they love watching that. They have not, Mike Gill, said a word about the start of the WNBA season and even knowing that it happened. To your point, this is part of the target audience. Girls, young ladies, teenage girls, this is part of who you're targeting. And my two are fans who will watch, and they have not said a word in the last 4 or 5 days about, hey, isn't the season starting? Isn't Caitlin Clark's game on, or isn't her second game on? So they are still falling short in some regard of promoting.
Yeah, listen, I'm in a non-WNBA market. Philly does not have a team, so I guess that plays into it too.
Tampa Bay doesn't have a team, and most of the country, by the way, doesn't have a team that's watching this, to your point. But go ahead.
Yeah, and listen, it goes back, Caitlin Clark plays for Indiana, not a big market here. So you talk about, market sizes. They've got her in Indiana. Paige Beckers is in Dallas, correct? Dallas?
Yes.
All right, so which is a pretty big market.
Angel Reese is in Chicago. Sabrina Ionescu led the New York Liberty to the title. That's New York, the number one media market.
By the way, like obviously New York, Chicago, Dallas, big markets. Philadelphia, very big market, does not have a WNBA team. So maybe that could be another reason why it hasn't kind of resonated where I am as much, just because there's no team in the market. Sure. Now, Tampa doesn't even have an NBA team, let alone a WNBA team.
Correct, but they're getting audience from everywhere, and let's see if it continues. All right, so we covered that subject a bunch here on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. While we're here, again, the Knicks getting ready to play the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference Final. We're channeling our 1990s selves, are we not, with the old school Reggie Miller, and those epic moments where he's making the 3-point bombs and then he's given the choke sign to Spike Lee in the front row. I don't want to accept, Mike, that was 30 years ago. Ewing and the Knicks, Reggie Miller and the Pacers, maybe not quite the same big brand names and venom as the 90s, but here it is. And again, it will be the last broadcast for Turner for the foreseeable future as they broadcast this playoff series. And after 40 plus years of doing the NBA, and the NBA postseason, they won't be involved with it anymore. So let's watch how this plays out. You and I both know what the truth is, which is, while the NBA won't admit it, they want New York. They want the New York market. They want some love, hate in the Northeast. You mentioned Philadelphia, Boston, Washington, no love for New York. They want some of that in the NBA Finals. If they get an Indiana against Minnesota or Oklahoma City, that's trouble. No matter how good the level of play is, it's not major markets. But just follow up on this as we get ready for the New York Love Fest to begin with Game 1 and now the rest of this series.
Well, listen, we've been saying like the NBA has some market problems in these playoffs. You had Oklahoma City, not a big market, obviously. The only one on the western side is no longer there. Golden State, they are now out. Minnesota, not a big market. Indiana, not a big market. You need it. The Knicks here, and they're going to need the Knicks. If you get an Indiana versus anybody as NBA Finals, yeah, that's disastrous. So obviously the Knicks, and it's a story, why did the World Series in 2016 do well? You had the Cubs, who had not won, the curse, the Billy Goat there. The Knicks have not won since 73. And by the way, the Knicks haven't won since 73. Nixon was in office. I wasn't born. But the three teams that are left, none of them have won a title unless you want to count the Supersonics in 79 for Oklahoma City. But Oklahoma City has never won in Oklahoma City. Minnesota has never won. Indiana has never won. So you're either getting a new champion for a first time ever, or you're getting a team that hasn't won since 73. So if they can somehow cultivate that, maybe they get something. But they need the Knicks.
All right, so stay tuned as that series begins. And again, we should point out that the Inside the NBA show, which has been the standard for 25 years, is not going away. These are the final episodes that will be on Turner. The show next year will move to ESPN and ABC and Sunday afternoon, and then playoff basketball as the pregame and postgame show.
Will it be in the same incarnation? Will it be able to have an overrun? Will they just, ESPN, when their games are over, they like to go right to SVP. Is that going to be something that they don't do anymore?
They're going to go to these guys. This is what everybody's used to. This is what they're paying for. Yeah,
When are these shows going to be on? Is it only going to be on weekends?
From my understanding, and again, this is a next year thing, they're going to be on Sundays. On Sundays on ABC or ESPN is when you will see them pre- and post-game show. And then obviously throughout the playoffs, they'll use them more with Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal. And the Turner personnel will still produce this, kind of like the McAfee show. It's being produced elsewhere, etc. But that's where it's going to air. So stay tuned. They'll do a sign off of sorts when that series is ending and say goodbye to Turner. But that pregame and postgame coverage will live on down the road. So there's a little NBA playoff talk. Let's move on, shall we, to the Preakness. I will be the first one to admit that I did not see this live. However, I did relive it a little later on in the evening on Saturday evening. What a finish, where the horse journalism that finished second in the Kentucky Derby, Mike, came roaring from behind to win the second jewel of horse racing's Triple Crown. There will be no Triple Crown winner because the winner's sovereignty
never entered the Preakness.
Of the Kentucky Derby didn't enter the Preakness. We'll talk about that a little more here in a couple of moments. But that doesn't mean that this wasn't a fantastic finish. And I believe you have it queued up to NBC and the call of Larry Colmus, their track announcer. You're going to see on the split video, Colmus is on the top of it from his perch at Pimlico Racecourse in Baltimore, calling the end of this. And I believe you're going to have the audio as well. Hopefully all of this will play. It's amazing to watch him with the monitors in front of him, the spotter he has next to him, and then just the overall elation, Mike, down the stretch as he realizes that not only is journalism being bumped and being messed with in the horse racing vernacular, being what is the phrase that they use? It's not bumped.
Jostled. I don't know.
And they have an official inquiry into what happened until the horse, just like a rocket, the last quarter of a mile, runs right to the finish line and wins the race. And I pay particular attention for the video audience that's watching this. Watch Larry Colmus and his reaction with his call. You can tell how amazed he is that journalism is able to recover. So I've set all that up. This is from NBC and their social media as they show this awesome split feed of the end of the Preakness on Saturday.
Wall of horses, he's looking for a place to go, and he's got nowhere to go. Oh, he bumped hard with goal-oriented. In the meanwhile, Gosker's running the race of his life, and Sandman has entered the scene, and he has moved up on the far outside. Journalism is still running on. He's back into second. He might even win it. Here's the wire. Oh, my goodness. Journalism has won the Preakness Stakes in a performance like you read about.
He's got the hand up in the air as we see on a performance like you read about. What a great call. It's like right towards the end, he realizes, because you saw him duck down under the monitors, he realizes that's journalism about to catch the other horse, and he elevated his call at the end. Tremendous track announcer, phenomenal. I know you guys had him on the Announcer Schedules podcast. Shall we reveal to the audience? You're efforting to bring him back on here on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. Mike, what's your assessment of seeing that? Because horse racing is not easy to call, obviously, at the end.
No, Mike Tirico actually has said it is the most difficult, harder than hockey to call, and Larry Colmus will join the show on Friday at 10 a.m. Let me spell the word "the" right there. 10 a.m.
All right.
Larry Colmus will join me right here on the Last Word on Sports Media. We'll have that at 10 a.m. on Friday. We had him on the Announcer Schedule pod that's on the archive in the feed here. He talked about the call that he had. The longest shot, he called that the Derby 2 years ago when it was the 82-1.
Yes.
The 82-1 shot.
Horse won the race, right.
Won the Derby. We also talked about some of his other funny calls. He's known for a call where my wife knows everything. My wife doesn't know. Those were the two names of the horses, and they were neck and neck coming down the stretch. You know, my wife knows everything. My wife doesn't know. And they were going back and forth. He explained how that all kind of got him some social media notoriety.
Yeah.
But that call there on the Preakness, it is one of the wildest things. You watch them. You're calling this event from binoculars
Monitors
monitor.
right in front of you,
There's
right?
a monitor, binoculars. You're looking yourself. You're kind of circulating through binoculars, monitor. What am I seeing? These horses are all banging into each other. And you are fixated on one horse who's so out in front, and then another one just enters the picture, and it almost consumes you.
Yeah.
I thought he had a epic call.
And it's the horse that finished runner-up in the Kentucky Derby. That's the one that's roaring down there with, man, great job. Great job by him. So I look forward to that. Now, the ratings, and we know this, the ratings always drop off from the Kentucky Derby, but I don't consider this that big of a disappointment. I mean, when you're talking about the audience that they had, it had 5.9 million watching in the race window, the 7 Eastern time window. That's down from the 22 million, that watched the Kentucky Derby. But still, 5.9 million is a large number, even in the sports world, for this event. And particularly, Mike, follow up on this. We knew there was no shot at the Triple Crown because the Derby winner, Sovereignty, didn't run in this race. That was well known for over a week and a half. There's still interest in this, is my point. That's a large. It's not like it was 2 million people that were watching.
No, I mean, look, it's a big number, but it hurt going in that you knew Sovereignty wasn't running. What's that number if Sovereignty's going for the Triple Crown? How much is that worth?
Do you believe it would have been double? 10 million watching?
That's what I'm wondering. How much was the horse going for the second leg worth? And then should that horse win, what does that do for the Belmont coming up at Saratoga in 3 weeks? Now,
all right.
A lot of people are complaining about the fact
the schedule
was cut. Yes.
All right. So they have brought this up. They talked about it at length at the Preakness. And essentially what Mike Tirico, Randy Moss, not the football player, but the racing analyst, keep saying is there's a movement right now to delay the Preakness by another week and spread the schedule out and maybe even delay the Belmont by a full couple of more weeks to allow these horses to have time to recover. All right, fundamentally, where do you come down? Should they leave the schedule the way that it has been really for the better part of about 75 years? Should they leave it intact and make it the challenge that it has been? Where do you come down on that, Mike Gill?
Well, I think, now correct me if I'm wrong. It has always been a 3-week gap between the races. There's always been 2 weeks. 2
weeks between the Derby and the Preakness, 3 weeks between the Preakness and the Belmont. That has always been the case.
If that is the case, I think they should probably keep it. I thought it was 3 weeks between each one, and that one of the reasons that they didn't want to make it 3 weeks this time is because they didn't want to run on Memorial Day weekend so that it was moved up. I guess is that not accurate?
It's always, but if you go 3 weeks later, it's always going to be Memorial Day weekend. It's always going to be the third weekend or the fourth weekend.
Correct. Well, all right. So, no,
you think they should, for the historical part of this, leave it the same? Because they're suggesting on NBC, and a lot of the horse racing community is suggesting they should vary it up, that it's 2025. We're kind of traditionalists in this regard. You think they should leave it?
I mean, because you're saying that, I mean, in this vein here, it's that this is the challenge of it and that why it's so hard to do. You don't want to make it easier to do.
Correct.
You want to keep the challenge. So, no,
Correct.
then I would be against.
Now, you've had suggestions in the past. Let me run my suggestion by you real quick.
Yeah.
I think this would help. I'm not saying it completely solves it.
I think it will help the ratings, by the way.
Sure, but here's what would help. Horses in the Derby enter the Preakness, and horses that have entered the first two enter the last one. And they used to do part of this. I don't believe they do it anymore. Financially, I incentivize it this way. Here's a suggestion. It's just a suggestion. I'm not a horse racing person. Everybody runs the Derby. Everybody's interested in the Derby. It has the most interest. It has the most audience. It has the most prestige to be a Kentucky Derby winner. We all understand that. So you run the race and you increase the purse big time. And money does matter. In this sport, it does matter. You could increase the purse even by a couple of million. There's money flowing everywhere, from NBC's rights fee to the sponsors, etc. Except we're going to have a catch, Mike Gill, which is you only get 1/3 of your prize money for winning the Kentucky Derby until the Preakness Stakes happens. You feeling me? And if your horse is in the Preakness Stakes, cha-ching, you get another third of your Kentucky Derby winnings, whether you won the race, you're second, or 16th. You do a 1/3 system for the Derby, You get the second third of it when you run the Preakness, plus the second third of the Derby money is for horses running in the Preakness. Then you get the Preakness purse, a separate purse. If I didn't lose you, that's more prize money. And then for the third race, any horses that have run in the first two races would automatically get like a $250,000 bonus just to enter the Belmont, just to enter the race. If you've run the first two, we'll give you $250 more just to run the third race and be there. And you make the financial incentive so great to be involved in the second race and the third race that these people won't be opting out as easily. Will it be perfect? No. Will there be injury to horses where they can't run? Sure. But what do you think of a suggestion?
Well, and that was going to be my thing. I don't want to incentivize with money to put the horses at risk here. You know, one of the reasons they don't run the horse is because they're afraid that the horse may, in fact, not be healthy enough or ready to run. Well, I can't say so be it. Just say take the $250,000 and then see the horse go down. I can't. You know, I think that is not fair.
But the point that you're making is up to the trainers of the horses, the owners of the horses, the
but
staff.
if you're incentivizing them with monetary things, they might say, well, "What the hell do I care if the horse gets hurt? I want my $250,000."
You have safeguards, though. You have a veterinary system. You have the track officials. You have everybody involved that can check the horse out, in particular if something's wrong. Now, keep in mind, a Kentucky Derby winning horse is worth much more at stud mating than it is for winning the Preakness and or the Triple Crown.
Sure, Sovereignty doesn't have to run ever again. That's horse correct. And the owners are set for life.
So the only thing I'm putting out there is if you want more involvement, incentivize it financially to be involved in the second race and potentially the third race. And they used to do a bonus that if a horse won the Triple Crown, they were going to get like an extra $2 million or an extra $5 million or something like that. Remember the Visa Triple Crown or whatever it was in the 90s and the 2000s, and nobody could ever win it. I'm saying come up with some kind of system. Mine's probably not perfect, but come up with some kind of system to incentivize with the Kentucky Derby prize money running in the second race and then running in the third race. I mean, could you imagine that Sovereignty, hypothetically, goes ahead and runs the Preakness, now gets 2/3 of its money, wins in the Preakness and gets more prize money because we've increased the purses, and now gets a $250,000 bonus just to show up for the Belmont with a chance to win even more prize money and get the final third of the Kentucky Derby money. You're talking about a horse, hypothetically, I'm just throwing numbers out, that could make $6, $8, $10 million just from those weekends.
Yeah, listen, and I think it is still a part of Americana where you had 22 million people watch the Derby.
Yes.
So obviously there is the interest there. If the horse ran in the Preakness, would that 5.7 million double? Would 10 million people have watched to see if this horse could win the second leg? Now, the question is, with journalism winning and Sovereignty winning, and them both running in the Belmont, does that do enough to see them break the tie, get the Belmont rating above the Preakness rating?
Absolutely. And if you're going for a Triple Crown, it would. I'm just trying to come up, and again, I'm not a horse racing person, with a way to incentivize running the second and the third race, because right now it's the Wild West. Everybody's doing whatever they want, and it's not as big a deal to win those races individually. And so you have what you have. All right, so we spent some time on horse racing, and as you've seen on the screen, and again for the podcast audience, Larry Colmus will be part of the show later this week. Look for it on social media and or on the podcast feed. Shall we move on? Where do you want to go next? Shall we bring it back? We haven't talked in the first 30 minutes of the show here about Bill Belichick. Shall we bring it back to Bill Belichick and the 24-year-old girlfriend and the controversy at the University of North Carolina? Why not? Let's bring that up for a moment or two. Belichick still trying to rehabilitate his image. Mike, he was on Good Morning America. We teased this when we were on last week that he was going to be back on a national interview on Good Morning America with Michael Strahan. That interview did happen last week, and I believe you're going to play a little video. We don't have to have the audio, a little video of him on with Michael Strahan. Interesting that after the whole situation with CBS where he's trying to promote the book and they shut the interview down and it was bizarre, that Belichick was back on in a coat and tie, as you will see on the video screen if you're with us on social media as we do this live and or if you're watching later on. And also that the 24-year-old girlfriend who's been involved in all of his social media, all of his media period, the book media tour, Jordan Hudson was apparently not in the studio and may not have even, I don't know this for sure, may not have even been there at all. But this was back to the rehabbing of the Belichick image as we watch the video while we talk, that he's sitting across from Strahan in a coat and tie, having the conversation about the book, going over his coaching career, the things that were supposed to be, featured for this new book, The Art of Winning, that he has. You're seeing it right here on the screen.
I'm here now with the man who is widely
as we're doing it, and we don't have to necessarily have the audio. We can just watch him because it's about a 9-minute interview. They joke around, but there's Mike Gill. There's Bill Belichick back in the coat and tie, not in the ripped Navy sweatshirt that he was for the CBS interview. Mike Gill.
Yeah, I mean, this is almost a sad thing watching this guy have to go parade himself around. I mean, he looks like a guy who's, obviously trying to completely rehab himself. I saw him, I believe we talked about Ryan Clark earlier. I think he was on the Ryan Clark Pivot podcast.
Okay.
And he talked about.
Did he have the coat and tie on? I don't even know. We'll have to look.
No, I don't think he had the coat and tie on, but he talked about, because there was people suggesting that his girlfriend was basically running the sports information department, and he said no, that North Carolina didn't even have a sports information department, and all I was saying was, if you want me to be on your podcast, I got to have somebody filter these all out because I'm getting inundated with them. So somebody had to handle that role. So I was basically saying, hey, if you want to have me on your podcast, send it to Jordan and she'll kind of, set it up. I mean, that's what he was suggesting.
It even went beyond that, where she started having say-so in what they were doing. Apparently now it has come out, and we're good there on the video. You get the point. Michael Strahan interviewed him for about 9 minutes about the book on Good Morning America. But it got to the point where she was involved with NFL Films wanting to do the hard knocks 24/7 like they do with NFL teams with North Carolina football.
Yeah.
And she kept rebuffing them on access and what they were allowed to do, and whether the university wanted it to happen and got overruled. Bill Belichick decided, because his girlfriend was in the middle of it, we're not going to do this, because she was nixing several things that they wanted to do. All right, one more point on this whole thing. It is still out there. There is still belief that Bill Belichick isn't going to coach at all at North Carolina, that later this summer at some point he will say, hey, I thought I wanted to do this, but I'm not going to. Pablo Torre, who's a personality that's been on ESPN and elsewhere, former writer with Sports Illustrated, he continues to insist that Belichick's family is now very concerned. Belichick's family is concerned about the girlfriend involvement and about him ruining his legacy at North Carolina, and they're trying to prevail on him to pull the ejection handle before he ever coaches at North Carolina. I say to you again, is he going to get to the season? Are we going to see him coach games? What's your read right now in May? What's the latest? What do you think?
This is a tough one. It's watching him do this is sad almost. I mean, you're almost like watching this guy become a cartoon of what he was, this stoic individual. Now there's some reports that they're in fact engaged. I mean, if he's going down this road where he's become engaged, is he so warped in his mind of whatever she's kind of, I don't want to say fearful of losing, this young woman that he has somehow attracted, that he is willing to give up his career that he obviously so passionately wants to be a part of, but he's conflicted on whether or not he wants to. I think it's the most bizarre situation that has unfolded
Torre
here.
Keeps saying that the family is concerned that he will change his will, change their dynamic of their inheritance of his estate, the whole bit. They're concerned to that extent about who knows. So, and like you said on the program a couple of weeks ago, this is the exact opposite of what was not allowed to go on with the New England Patriots. This was absolutely forbidden to have any outside distraction, to have the media get involved. They went anti-media in New England. They hated the media, shut the media down. So stay tuned on what happens with Belichick.
Speaking of Pablo Torre, he just had the podcast interview with Tony Reale, as that show is ending on Friday, Around the Horn, and it's a really cool interview. He actually asked him about how he found out about the show, and Reale actually admitted in the show that he thought that the shows that they did leading up to it ending, that he thought that they could convince them to change the show, and obviously that is not happening.
Change their mind and keep the show.
Yes,
keep the show.
Yeah.
And
He said, quote, "I operated for months thinking we'll change their mind. There were days when our ratings were better than every show except for PTI." So a lot of people said they're not getting rid of the show because it doesn't perform well in the ratings. So there's a lot of confusion as to why did they randomly pick this show to get rid of.
Because they have something else planned, whatever it is.
They haven't announced it. They haven't announced it.
Something else is. And again, Around the Horn has been on for 20 plus years. Remember, it was originally Max Kellerman that was hosting Around the Horn with Woody Page, T.J. Simers, the late writer of the L.A. Times.
Yeah, by the way, if you remember T.J. Simers was the original host. You mentioned Woody Page, T.J. Simers, and Jay Mariotti. Simers got fired because he basically said the show stinks, and they got rid of him.
And the show is basically rehearsed and contrived, and what you're seeing isn't real all the time. What a surprise from a reality show. So we'll see. We'll see what they replace it with. Again, pardon the interruption, is a franchise, is a juggernaut. That's not going anywhere. It's worth a ton of money.
Well, one of the ideas was to expand that show to an hour, which I think has been rebuffed. I think Andrew Marchand wrote about the possibility of a Stephen A. Smith 5 o'clock show, possibly Peter Schrager, who's now over there.
Because we don't have Stephen A. Smith on enough with First
I
Take
don't need to see a Stephen A. Smith show at 5 o'clock. Luckily, I am on the radio at that time, so Around the Horn I've never seen really at all, very infrequently. I actually, when Around the Horn was announced, I liked the concept in my mind that they were kind of showing, like you had columnists, which are kind of antiquated. There are no more columnists.
In different markets with different opinions, yes.
Correct, and that you would hear, see, I used to do a segment on my show. A buddy of mine lives in Los Angeles, and I live in Atlantic City. And we used to do a segment called East Coast, West Coast, where we would take national sports stories and get the perspective of an East Coast guy and a West Coast guy. I thought that this Around the Horn was going to be similar of, hey, here's the topic. What does Chicago think about this? What does Boston think about this? What does L.A. think about this? What does Dallas think about this? And you could hear the 4 different markets' perspective on this one national story. It never materialized that, and it turned into a stupid debate from guys. You're asking Woody Page what he thinks about the Rangers. Terrible,
team, by the way, some of the time, yes.
I thought the show was cartoonish. You had guys who had no expertise talking about things they didn't care about. They basically, hey, tell us about the Yankees taking on the Red Sox. You're asking a guy that's from the Denver Post.
Right, exactly. So,
but you weren't asking their perspective from there. You were asking his insight on the game that nobody cared about.
Yeah, and so that show is sunsetting here later this week. That's been long announced, and this is the final week of it in original production.
I think Friday's the last day.
They're going to shake some things up. All right, let's cover a couple of more things before we get out of here on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. As we do this on social media live, maybe you're seeing it a little later. Mike Gill, you're hearing from. It does a great job with the Sports Bash, the afternoon show in Atlantic City on the ESPN station, 97.3 ESPN. I'm based here in West Central Florida, TJ Reese. You can see us on YouTube under Mike Gill's show. You are hearing us also on Pod as well on Apple, Spreaker, and Spotify. Come see the video. Come find the video and see what we're talking about. A couple more subjects before we are gone. Scottie Scheffler did have some redemption at the PGA Championship, winning the 3rd major of his career. CBS's coverage had nearly 7 million people watching the final hour. Yeah. Now, again, like the Kentucky Derby versus the Preakness, that 7 million is way down from the nearly 20 million that watched Rory McIlroy in the final hour win the Masters. Not as prestigious of a tournament, but still a 7 million audience to watch the end of the golf when there wasn't a lot of drama is good. And Scheffler goes from being arrested a year ago in Louisville at the PGA Championship to now being the PGA winner. And I did see one of my colleagues on social media. He was begging, wanting Jim Nantz to make some kind of arrest reference for Scheffler's victory, because Nantz always has the famous lines, something like from jail to winning at Quail for Quail Hollow, something for Scheffler in the rebound. But there wasn't really a quip from Jim Nantz.
That was an easy one. He locks up his 3rd major.
He locks it up, exactly. But
he has just locked up his 3rd major. Come on, Jim Nantz. I know he writes down different lines that come on.
But Scheffler won it. CBS got some good audience. It'll lead to the U.S. Open, which will be on NBC later this summer in June as the next golf major. And one other interesting note about all of this, there's a very short list. Scottie Scheffler has now won 15 PGA Tour events and 3 major titles before the age of 30. The other 2 names, Mike Gill, are Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods. 15 PGA Tour wins and 3 majors before you're 30 years old. This is a pretty amazing run that he's on. That's a short list. It's a list you might
It's a short list. The problem with, well, I will say this. The number 6.8 million is nothing to sneeze about.
That's
the problem is any event that's not a major is not generating anywhere near that. And I think the LIV and the PGA has certainly something to do with that. If the LIV and the PGA could figure out how to get those guys all playing together,
right.
I mean, LIV is not drawing anything.
Right, but we see them at the majors because John Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau are LIV golfers, and they were contending. John Rahm was tied for the lead on the back 9 Sunday, but they couldn't finish off the tournament. But you're right. They need the bigger names to come together like they do in the majors. They got to figure that part out. And I realize not everybody's a golf fan, but we spent some time on horse racing. We now spend some time on golf.
I had the golf on. I have 2 TVs on my back porch. I had the golf Phillies game with the sound on, golf second TV, no sound.
And really, you didn't have a lot of drama. So that, but still,
it was they did get within 1 stroke around, I mean, it was
5 Eastern time, right?
Yeah, it was right around 4:30, 5 o'clock. Scheffler was minus 11. Then he bogeyed. It was once. I think he was 11 or 10. He went. Oh, it was 10. He went down to 9, and it was
Rahm tied him.
Yeah,
Rahm tied him briefly at 9 under, and then Scheffler went on to win by 4 or 5 shots over everybody.
Yep.
All right, so the golf will continue on. Stanley Cup playoffs, by the way, down to the Panthers and Carolina, who debuted on Tuesday night, and Florida won again on the road in Game 1. Mike Gill, you can use this for your show later today on the Sports Bash. The Florida Panthers have played 8 road playoff games in the NHL. They're 6-2 on the road. Hello, including a clinching Game 7 win at Toronto. So the Panthers are the defending champs, playing Carolina. Dallas and last year's runner-up Edmonton get underway tonight. How much is anybody going to care without the Northeast markets? If it's a Florida, Edmonton, or Dallas,
no.
How much is anybody going to care, even if it is the defending champs, Mike? That's the real question.
By the way, we did have a little hockey buzz in our market. A guy that you're probably familiar with, Rick Tocchet, just got hired to be the next Flyers coach. He was doing some TV, by the way. Is he still doing TV?
He was doing Turner at one point, and then he's been doing some coaching. He was a coach in Tampa Bay long ago. He's a longtime teammate of Wayne Gretzky's. He was an assistant when Gretzky was the coach in Arizona as well. And again, the hockey coaches get passed around like the offering plate at church. They get hired and fired over and over and over again. So that's interesting. But again, for the NHL, they don't have the storyline.
The answer is no. There is no buzz from any team.
Yeah.
There's no player. Well, I take
guess
that back.
If you had your druthers, would you not? If you had your druthers, you would want Florida going for the repeat against Edmonton for the second year in a row when Canada hasn't won a cup in 30-plus years. There's the best storyline you could get out of the last 4 teams, right? That would happen.
Yeah, I was going to say Edmonton. I see, and I don't know how this works with the TV markets. Canada obviously does not incorporate into the U.S. ratings here. But if you're hockey and you're just saying, hey, we had the entire country of Canada watching, how do they prosper from that? I don't know.
Generally speaking, they have been averaging right around 7 or 8 million people watching in Canada now, separately. Something like that. 8 million, 9 million, depending on the game. So that's bonus audience because you've got to believe there's going to be 8-10 million people watching.
I guess
in Canada.
The question is, the U.S., Canada, that best on best, whatever they called that thing.
The 4 nations that they had, the 4 nations, right.
That did really well. It came at a time freshly after the Canada-U.S. had some, some political rift.
Economic and political.
Is there still carryover from that they can, I don't want to say capitalize on, but, and if that's a possibility, would people rally around Florida and or Carolina? I don't know about that.
All right, one more thing. Bob Wischusen is now done with his coverage on ESPN as the secondary announcer for the NHL on ESPN. Sean McDonough and Ray Ferraro are calling the coverage of, I believe they have the Dallas-Edmonton series, and the Carolina-Florida series is on Turner with Kenny Albert, Eddie Olczyk, and Brian Boucher. Turner has the Stanley Cup this year, so Albert, Olczyk, and Boucher will call the Stanley Cup for this year. But I say salute again to Bob Wischusen, who's tremendous on the NHL play-by-play with the enthusiasm, the elevation of the voice. He called the game-winning goal, the series-clinching goal for the Dallas Stars over Winnipeg. A dramatic moment there. I believe he is as underrated a national broadcaster as there is, him calling hockey. So salute to him, because he's now signed off for another year doing the NHL on ESPN's coverage. He'll move on to doing college football and the New York Jets on the radio.
I was going to say, he also does
fall.
the Jets. Yeah, he is the Jets play-by-player on radio. He does college football for ESPN. We had him on the Announcer Schedules podcast. He was great on the podcast. So if you want to go back and check the archives, and we can let's get a little Bob Wischusen.
You
want
to play this? This is the clinching goal against Winnipeg from Saturday night. Yeah. Great call. Here it is.
Fanned it to behind the net. 22 seconds left on the power play. Marksman tosses it off the chest of Hellebuck. Played to the corner by Pionk. Circling that, taking to Harley. Score! Series over!
And for our podcast audience, he's doing what TV guys should do. Lay out, let the pictures show it all, while you're not hearing him call anything or say anything.
Yep, there you go. And that's Bob Wischusen, as you mentioned. Yeah, great stuff from him. He hits it. He's got a good cadence for a game-winning goal.
Yeah, and again, tremendous job from him. And that's not to say that the other ones don't do a great job with Kenny Albert and Sean McDonough on the call. I'm just saying Wischusen is underrated, and I'm not his agent, and I don't even know him.
Yeah, we did have him on the podcast. I don't know him other than the half hour that I talked to him on the podcast. Nice guy. Does, as we said, kind of a do-it-all for ESPN, NHL, college football, does the Jets.
College basketball.
I was going to say, there's some other things that I think I'm missing in there that he lends his voice to.
And by the way, the Jets will come play my Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the Buccaneer home opener in the schedule 2025 here this September.
The Eagles are back down there.
So I'll get to see Bob Wischusen in and around that.
Eagles down there week 4, September 28th.
Yep. Right after that, yes. Yeah. All right, let's finish up with a couple of more things. The Sports Emmy Awards were held on Tuesday night in New York. We won't go over all of it, but a couple of the pertinent ones. Joe Davis of Fox, who you're very high on, Mike Gill, was named best play-by-play for the Major League Baseball on Fox. He bettered both of the Eagles, Ian Eagle for the hoops and the NFL on CBS. And the NCAA tournament on CBS, as well as other endeavors, and Noah Eagle for his call of the Summer Olympics, as well as college football on NBC's primetime Big Ten game. They were father-son both nominated, but Joe Davis ends up being the top play-by-play Emmy Award winner for 2025. The top studio analyst, Ernie Johnson from Inside the NBA. So kind of maybe playing a little tribute and a little goodbye, a little favorites with Inside the NBA. And Charles Barkley was named best analyst of a studio show at the Sports Emmy Awards on Tuesday night. The best live studio show went to ESPN's College Game Day for college football. The best daily studio show went to ESPN's NFL Live every day, Monday through Friday in the football season. So there's just some of the Sports Emmy Awards. Your thoughts on any or all of that real quick before we're gone?
I like Joe Davis on baseball. I don't know that he is, as a baseball caller, the best of all the best, but not like egregious by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know if I say, man, Joe Davis calling baseball is the elite of all sports. I'll tell you, I don't know how you decide who is that. I mean, it's just really what do you like better? What's your style? I mean, some people can say, hey, Joe Buck doing football, he's the best. Some people can say Mike Breen doing the NBA, that's the best. I mean, so I think that's a really tough
when you
one.
would hear, for example, when you would hear Costas do baseball in the day or Al Michaels do baseball in the day, that those names would resonate as national play-by-play men. So, and again, we should point out, this is not just in a category of best baseball announcer. He got the Emmy for best play-by-play. And some of it's the Shohei Ohtani stuff with the calls of him getting the 40-40 with the stolen bases, or right, wasn't it the 40-40 with the home runs and the stolen bases in the same season, and the dramatics of the Dodgers, the team that he calls regularly, winning the World Series over the Yankees. That helped put him over the top for that, for what it's
By
worth.
the way, the owners are heading into a privileged session to further debate the tush push. So we started this podcast. There was the tush push got pushed off to today, and then they voted. Now they're going to a special session. I mean, are we kidding
this
me
again,
here?
If you're not familiar, you probably are, but if you're not familiar, this is the Philadelphia Eagles version of the quarterback sneak that they've used so effectively with Jalen Hurts. And there's some debate about whether they're going to do away with the play and not allow multiple players to push any player from behind.
Push or pull.
You can still do the sneak. You just can't have people pushing or pulling, which brings up the whole argument about gang tackling. Why can you have 5 guys tackle somebody with the ball, but you can't have other people pushing that person? So that's the debate that's going on at the owners' meetings in the NFL, and there'll be a lot of coverage of that midweek, et cetera. The NFL doesn't have an offseason, Mike Gill. Schedule release, draft, free agency, rules changes. The NFL is king with all of this.
NFL wins all the time, every time, and they
Speaking of the NFL,
speaking
of the NFL and the NFL Red Zone, you have an update real quick as well on this Wednesday.
Oh, yes.
We do it live.
While we're here, and this kind of just came across as we were getting ready for the show, so we didn't have it in our original rundown. But according to Front Office Sports, Michael McCarthy, it is likely that Scott Hanson will return as the NFL Red Zone host with a new contract. He's also going to be doing the Gold Zone again, NBC Olympics that are going to be coming up here. Yes.
Right, and Scott Hanson is now synonymous with the Red Zone. Remember, he started it. They also had a direct TV feed with Andrew Siciliano. They had 2 separate ones. They sunsetted the direct TV version when YouTube took over the Sunday ticket of every week. They don't have 2 versions of it anymore. Scott Hanson's doing the only version on the Red Zone. He's synonymous with that, and I have a 25-year relationship with him. He used to be in the local market here in Tampa Bay where
he was in the Philly market, too,
he
way
was there
back
with
in the day.
So good on him. He's synonymous with that. He should keep doing it as long as he wants to keep doing it.
By the way, talking about the NFL and blah, blah, the fact that they never go away, you mentioned YouTube. YouTube officially got that game now for
Friday night.
The Friday
night.
Yes.
The marquee.
So it's going to be a free
Brazil
game. It's going to be a free game on Friday night on Brazil, but YouTube now dipping. So what is the number up to now?
Chiefs.
How many different platforms do you need now to watch the entire NFL schedule?
23 or 85. I'm not sure how many different services, channels have NFL games, including the Red Zone channel. But yes, so the streamer gets the Friday night game, but it's free to see because wasn't it a year ago? I think it was on Amazon Prime, I believe.
Yes, it was an Amazon. It was an Amazon. Oh, was it a Peacock?
I'm trying to remember. Maybe it'd been Peacock too. I don't know. But now it will be.
The Eagles were in the game, but it was on locally here. I think it was on Peacock. Actually,
might have been.
Yeah.
But YouTube will show it for free this year to kind of tease up the Sunday ticket.
But
the NFL's king.
But it is a new foray into YouTube now entering the NFL mix. And we know the NFL with the streamers, they are saying, hey, and they're giving the streamers good games. They're not making you wait and say, hey, prove to us. They're saying, hey, here's the best game on the schedule. It's yours. And the networks who have been our partners for years, you'll get the crumbs.
Yes, true. All right, we have been here a bit. I think we've covered pretty much anything. Anything else in closing in the sports media standpoint? NBA, Stanley Cup playoffs still ongoing. A lot of the other stuff is winding down. College baseball big. Oh, one other thing. For the first time ever, Fox will broadcast the Indianapolis 500 on Sunday. The greatest spectacle in racing, as it's known. It's previously been on NBC for about the last decade. Before that, ABC and ESPN had the race for the better part of about 50 years or more, the old wide world of sports. Mike Gill, they used to not show the race live because the organizers in Indianapolis would not let it be shown live. They would show a tape delay Sunday night of Memorial Day weekend after the late local news. It only became a live event like in the mid-1980s, about 40 years ago. For 15, 20 years, you couldn't see the Indianapolis 500 live, but Fox will now get it for this weekend. They'll have a lot of their personalities besides racing personalities there. So one of the crown jewels of racing, motorsports racing, runs this weekend on Fox. We'll check it out and see what the coverage looks like. Anything else?
Yeah, I'll leave you with this question. Are you spending $29.99 for direct-to-consumer ESPN?
I had this conversation in my own household. We already spend almost $100 for live TV with Hulu that includes ESPN and ESPN Plus. Are they about to tell me that they're going to rip ESPN and ESPN Plus out of Hulu? If so, it's going to be bye-bye Hulu in my house.
Well, they have a package that's $34.99. I think that is Disney Plus, ESPN, and Hulu. So that's the upper tier if you want to, I guess, keep that. Now, I don't have Hulu. Is there a version that has live TV?
They have a live TV version, and then they have a version where you can watch all of the on-demand programming, like you said, with ESPN Plus, Disney Plus, and Hulu on demand. But I'm curious because they are baking in a large rights fee right now for ESPN into that Hulu package for me. The answer to your question is no. I'm not interested in paying $29.95 or more just for ESPN. And I think I speak for millions that will.
Well, I will say this. I have YouTube TV mainly because it has the regional sports network, NBC Sports Philadelphia. So I get Phillies, I get Flyers, I get Sixers. The moment they leave YouTube TV, I'm going to be searching for something new.
And so stripping these things out could be a negative. Stay tuned on the new ESPN direct-to-consumer. And just remember, ESPN has tried things before that flamed out hilariously, like the ESPN phone, for example. Yeah. Remember that?
I do.
They have for now. They have a sports book called ESPN Bet. Every indication is that may not be around a year from now.
I am betting that sports book.
Did you say that? I see what you did there. You're betting their sports book won't be around. I think that's a great way to finish the pod and the live video show. Mike Gill, great stuff. Thank you, my friend. Have a great week.
All right, everybody. We'll catch up with you. By the way, Larry Colmus, Friday. Make sure you make an appointment.
Right here on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. For Mike Gill, I'm TJ Reeves. Thank you for being with us either on video or on pod for the LWOS Media Podcast and Show.